Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Michael KF4BOG and I'm on Ham Shack Hotline today with kb9zds Andy, and I just got him hooked up to Ham Shack Hotline. What was it, a couple of weeks ago?
Um, yeah, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago.
And what do you think about it so far?
Well, it's an interesting way to get into IP phones.
Yeah, because you had said to me that IP phones are like, they used them in dentist offices, doctor's offices, things like that. And they still do, but they've kind of been rotating between the newer phones and the old ones.
Well, the only thing that changes is the hardware that's in front of you. That's really all that changes.
Have you tried any of the other bridges yet?
I've been on a couple of different bridges. I was on one on Sunday that was in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
It was really weird. I dialed into the Scotland reflector and ended up on a net from Canada.
I've always ran into situations where I'll get into a reflector or a system and not realize where I'm at until they tell me.
Well, that's why I always like to know what my extension is before I dial it.
Yeah, and what do you think of the extension that you have?
Well, like I said, the extension that you have is just the hardware that's in front of you. What you're doing is you're creating an online account that you plug into a phone,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go on your merry way. In fact, I just figured one unique thing about Clipchamp Hotline is that it's a closed system. So basically, the server you log into has a certain number of extensions.
Right.
And as I often tell my friend Mike, who is the other end of this phone call,
Yep.
you cannot use the Ham Shack Hotline phone to call anyone who's not in the system. Meaning, if I needed to call my neighbor 3 doors down, I couldn't do that.
Yeah, and you couldn't order a pizza either.
Yeah, you can't call Jimmy John's or anything like that.
Yeah, you can't order a pizza. Now, you can add features to it, but they would charge you for those features. Like if you wanted to have a line or whatever to order something or to call 911. I mean, they do charge for that, though.
Well, what's unique about Ham Shack Hotline is the service is free, but the hardware is not.
Right.
So what you have to do is you have to go get a user configurable phone, meaning the phone to sit on your desk that you pay for.
Right.
And then you use the features of that phone to do whatever you want. So on my particular phone, which is a Grand Stream 1400, line 1 is Ham Shack Hotline. But the project I was working on today, line 2, which is a completely separate, isolated configuration, on the same phone, line 2 is One Suite VYP, which is a commercial telephone line. Which literally means I could be talking to my friend Mike on Ham Shack Hotline, and then all of a sudden my phone literally rings again, but the light is line 2. So that means someone could call me at my Google Voice number, and I could be on the phone with Mike, and all of a sudden my phone starts ringing again.
And in your case, it was real easy because you have that IT background.
Well, if you're familiar and comfortable with another amateur radio project, which is called PiStar, if you've used PiStar in the past, this is terribly simple.
How long did it take you to set it up?
Well, I needed to find a config file. I needed to find somebody with a phone that was willing to share their config file with me. Once they did that, 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. There's been a lot of talk lately about some videos not being up to par with the setup configurations. Like I was looking earlier and somebody said that somebody did a tutorial completely wrong.
Well, there's 2 different broad categories you can do with Ham Shack Hotline. One is HHUS, which is the server that the US is on. And the HHUS server only supports phones that are literally listed on the Ham Shack Hotline website.
Right.
Which basically you request a phone number, you wait 2 or 3 business days, and presto.
Yeah, and what's weird is that you and we're both on the experimental line. We're on HHUX.
Right, that's the other account that I was, or server system that I was about to get to. So if you want a dummy-proof way to get onto Amtrak Hotline, you look at the hardware requirements for HHUX, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're willing to tinker, you can go out and get any user configurable IP phone or IP device.
Mm-hmm.
And you file a line request.
Right.
For HHUX.
Right.
And then they will 2 or 3 days later they will respond with a username and password, a server address, and all that stuff. They'll give you the server address, the username, and the password.
Right. And from what I heard, it's like, if you don't know much about it, you got to get somebody to help you because it's tedious.
Well, and like I said, with the correct background, you can have it running in 15 minutes. But you have to be willing to find all the places that you need to put that information in your bring your own device endpoint.
Right. Right.
And if you do it right, you're up in 10 minutes. But if you don't want to mess around with that, get on HHUS.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you have to take into account when getting into the service there, and that's usually the case because I've been on the experimental line now for about 2-3 months going on now, and you have to be very current with what your information is. You have to be accurate with what you're saying in the support tickets and everything, otherwise they won't be able to do much for you.
And one thing is that on HHUX, if you have a problem, they will only provide you server status and server level support to make sure to make sure they're not blocking you on the server. Beyond that, you don't have any support on HHUX.
No. And what's even weirder is the guy. I ran into one person and they were like, yeah, you gotta have, if you're using a different phone, then you gotta have XXX, but if you don't want to use, you could still use the phone that you have, but you won't be able to get a second number. Like, I couldn't get a second number because I've already got my phone provisioned to HHUX right now.
Well,
and that's what they told me.
Yeah, I mean, once you register on a server, you're stuck to it.
Yeah, you're pretty much stuck to it, unless you deactivate the phone and then you reactivate it on a different server.
Yeah, no, there was an experience that I just had today that is an exception to that.
Mm-hmm.
If you have, now I was working with a random person, a tech support ticket that came to me from KF4VOG.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
The weird thing was he sent that ticket to me without telling me he was going to send me a ticket, so it was a bit of a cluster. It was a bit of a mental leap.
Yeah, I was not expecting the call from that person either. I was not expecting it. I was not expecting that call.
Well, it was funny because when he called me on an HH extension.
Yeah.
He called me inside the system, and I was like, well, if you're on the system, then you're on the system. And he was like, well, yes, but I have two lines.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that he was actually talking straight. So after I got done with him, I looked up his record in the Hamtrak Hotline phone book.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he did have two Hamtrak Hotline numbers. But his thing was he actually had two hotline phones, one that qualified for HHUS
mm-hmm.
and one that didn't. So they did give him another registration because he needed to be on two different servers. But once you pick your server, you're stuck with it unless you have.
Oh, wow. Well, anyway.
So I can see what he did. He got a supported endpoint and requested HHUS, and then when he got the unsupported endpoint, he requested HHUX.
Right. Well, thank
So
you.
so that's one way you can do it.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and be looking for this on YouTube soon.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.